Ever feel like you're just going through the motions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wake up,
Yeah.
check your phone,
Yep.
work, eat,
Yeah.
sleep,
Mm-hmm.
repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And for what? Like
Okay.
you're on autopilot, but the destination is,
Right.
well, a bit depressing.
Yeah.
It's like society is telling us,
Totally.
get a degree, get a job, pay bills until you die.
Yeah.
Not exactly inspiring, is it?
Nope.
Welcome back to the Creator Age podcast. Today we're diving deep into how to break free from that feeling and actually find meaning in this wild world, especially as creators.
It's a really common feeling, especially now. We're constantly bombarded with information, expectations, demands on our time. It's so easy to get caught up in the doing and lose sight of the being. And that disconnect is at the heart of what a lot of people are calling a meaning crisis.
Okay, meaning crisis. It sounds dramatic,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people can relate. What are some signs you're actually in the midst of one?
Well, think about it. Are you constantly glued to your phone,
Oh, yeah.
seeking validation or distraction? Do you feel a nagging sense of emptiness even when you're achieving things?
Yeah.
Does the education system feel more like a factory churning out useful workers than a place to discover your passions?
Oh, for sure.
And does the thought of technology replacing your job fill you with dread?
Absolutely.
These are all symptoms of a deeper struggle to find meaning in a world that often feels meaningless.
It's almost like we're on this treadmill,
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
and running, but not really getting anywhere.
Right.
So how do we step off the treadmill and find a path that feels more, well, meaningful?
One powerful framework I found helpful is this idea of 3 modes of existence: being, doing, and becoming. We've talked about the trap of constant doing,
Right.
but being is about cultivating present moment awareness. It's not about adding more to your to-do list, but rather bringing intention to the things you're already doing. Even something as simple as washing the dishes.
Yeah.
Instead of rushing through it mindlessly, really feel the water on your hands.
Yeah.
The soap suds, the weight of the dishes. It's a tiny shift,
Yeah.
but it brings you back to the present moment, to the experience of simply being.
I love that example. It's so easy to get caught up in our heads and forget to actually experience the world around us. So if being is about presence and doing is about action,
Yeah.
what about becoming?
Becoming is the growth that emerges from the interplay of being and doing. It's about who you're evolving into as a result of your choices and actions. It's not just about achieving goals, but about the person you're becoming along the way.
So it's like this constant feedback loop.
Yeah.
Being influences doing influences becoming.
Exactly.
And becoming influences being. It's all interconnected.
Exactly. And when we understand that, we can start to make choices that align with the kind of person we want to become and the kind of life we want to create.
It sounds like finding that alignment is key to escaping the meaning crisis. But with all the distractions and pressure of modern life, how do we actually do that?
That's where the concept of flow state comes in.
I've heard of flow state.
Yeah.
But it always seemed a bit elusive.
Yeah.
Like something that happens by chance.
It can feel that way, but there are actually specific conditions that make flow more likely.
Okay.
You could call it a spiritual experience, sure, but it's also a state of heightened focus and clarity, where you're fully immersed in an activity, losing track of time, and experiencing a deep sense of joy and accomplishment. And the cool thing is, it's not just for artists or athletes.
Right.
It can happen in any activity where you're fully engaged.
Okay, so how do we tap into that magical flow state
Yeah.
more consistently?
Well, research suggests there are 3 key elements. First, you need a clear hierarchy of goals. Our brains crave order and direction.
Yeah.
When we have a roadmap, a clear understanding of where we're going and why, it creates a sense of purpose and stability that allows us to focus more deeply.
So it's not just about having goals.
Right.
It's about organizing them in a way that makes sense and provides a clear path forward.
Exactly. Think of it as a pyramid.
Oh.
At the top is your overarching vision, your big why.
Yeah.
Below that are smaller, more concrete goals that break down that vision into manageable steps.
Right.
And each step you take,
Yeah.
each goal you achieve, reinforces your sense of progress and motivates you to keep going.
That makes sense. But what about those of us who struggle with setting goals in the first place?
It's not always easy, and sometimes The problem isn't setting goals, but rather setting the right goals.
Okay.
Goals that genuinely excite you and align with your deeper passions. This brings us to the second element of flow. Deep interest.
Okay.
You're not going to get into flow doing something you hate.
Right.
No matter how clear your goals are.
For sure.
The activity needs to resonate with you on a fundamental level.
So how do we figure out what those deeply interesting activities are? It's easy to feel lost in a sea of possibilities.
It takes some introspection, some honest self-reflection.
Okay.
Ask yourself some key questions. What were you passionate about as a child?
Okay.
What gets you so absorbed you lose track of time?
Yeah.
What would you be willing to learn even if no one was paying you? What are you curious about?
Those are great questions to ponder.
Yeah.
So we have clear goals, deep interest.
Yes.
What's the third piece of the flow puzzle?
It's the balance between challenge and skill.
Okay.
Think of it like a video game. If it's too easy, you get bored.
Yeah.
If it's too hard, you get frustrated.
Right.
Flow happens in that sweet spot where you're constantly pushing your limits, learning and growing, but not getting overwhelmed.
It's like finding that Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
The perfect level of challenge that keeps you engaged and motivated.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to cultivate that balance is through projects.
Projects. How do they play into this?
Projects provide a framework for applying your skills and knowledge towards a specific outcome.
Okay.
They allow you to set clear goals, break them down into smaller steps, and adjust the challenge level as you go. Plus, the sense of accomplishment you get from completing a project, no matter how big or small, reinforces that flow state and motivates you to keep going.
Okay, so we have our three elements for flow. Hierarchy of goals, deep interest, and the right balance of challenge and skill.
Yeah.
Ideally within the context of a project.
Exactly.
But you mentioned earlier that we also evolve through different levels of consciousness throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And these stages influence how we perceive the world and what we find meaningful. Can we dive into that a bit?
Absolutely. It's a fascinating concept. Essentially, it suggests that we all go through these stages of development, each shaping how we see ourselves and the world around us.
So it's like we're all operating from different mental frameworks.
Yeah.
And those frameworks influence our values, beliefs, and actions.
Exactly. And understanding these stages can help us make sense of why people see the world so differently and why conflicts arise so easily.
All right, I'm hooked. Break it down for me. What are these stages and how do they work?
Well, in broad strokes, there are four main stages.
Okay.
The first is the egocentric stage, where our focus is primarily on our own survival and needs. It's a very me-centered perspective.
Right.
As we mature, we typically move into the group-centric stage, where our identity expands to include our family, tribe, community, or ideology. We become more aware of social norms and expectations and prioritize the well-being of our group.
So it's about shifting from me to us, essentially.
Precisely. Then, as our consciousness continues to evolve, we might reach the world-centric stage.
Okay.
Here, we start to see ourselves as part of a larger global community concerned with issues like social justice, environmental sustainability, and the well-being of humanity as a whole.
That sounds like a pretty enlightened perspective. Is that the final stage?
Well, some models include a fourth stage called cosmocentric, where awareness expands even further to encompass the entire cosmos and the interconnectedness of all things.
Wow, that's getting pretty deep. But I can see how each stage builds upon the previous one.
Yeah.
Expanding our circle of concern and our sense of what's truly important.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Most people get stuck at the group-centric level, which can lead to a lot of conflict. Think about it. Political polarization, cultural clashes, even arguments online.
Yeah.
They often stem from people clinging to their group identity and seeing anyone outside that group as a threat.
It's like we're all trapped in our own echo chambers, unable to see beyond our limited perspective.
Right. That's why it's so crucial to be aware of these stages and actively work on developing our consciousness beyond the group-centric level. The more we can expand our sense of us to include all of humanity and even the entire web of life, the more meaning we'll find in our lives.
So these stages of development play a big role in how we perceive the world and find meaning. But what about the structure of reality itself? I'm curious to hear more about what you mean by that.
Now we're getting into the really mind-bending stuff.
Okay.
There's a concept called holons that can help us understand how reality is organized.
Okay.
And it has profound implications for finding our place in the grand scheme of things.
Holons. I have to admit, I've never heard that term before. What are they exactly?
A holon is basically a whole that is also part of a larger whole.
Okay.
Imagine those Russian nesting dolls where each doll is complete in itself, but also fits inside a larger one.
Okay, I'm starting to visualize it. Can you give me some concrete examples to make it clearer?
Absolutely. Think about atoms and molecules.
Okay.
An atom is a whole entity, but it's also part of a molecule, which is a larger whole, or words and sentences. A word has its own meaning, but it's also part of a sentence, which conveys a more complex meaning. Even in a business, an employee is a whole person with their own skills and motivations, but they're also part of a team.
Yeah.
Which is part of a department, which is part of the company as a whole.
That's a really helpful way to explain it. So everything is interconnected. Everything is both a whole and a part.
Exactly. And that understanding can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Because it helps us see our place in the grand scheme of things. We're not just isolated individuals. We're part of this vast interconnected web of life.
This is blowing my mind a little. But how does understanding holons help us find meaning?
When we grasp that everything is interconnected, we start to see that our actions have ripple effects.
Okay.
Everything we do, every choice we make, impacts the larger whole. And that realization can give our lives a profound sense of purpose.
It's about aligning our actions with the highest order, with the well-being of the whole.
Exactly. But this is where it gets tricky. Because not all hierarchies are created equal. We need to distinguish between dominator hierarchies and natural hierarchies.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What's the difference?
Dominator hierarchies are imposed by force or authority. They often become oppressive, creating a win-lose dynamic where some benefit at the expense of others. Think about dictatorships, exploitative economic systems, or even abusive relationships.
Right. Those are clearly systems that don't serve the well-being of the whole.
Exactly. But natural hierarchies are different.
Okay.
They emerge organically from the principles of growth and evolution. They're based on collaboration, mutual benefit, and the understanding that the well-being of the whole is essential for the well-being of each part.
So, in a natural hierarchy, it's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
That our individual success is intertwined with the success of the larger system.
Precisely. And when we align our actions with that understanding, when we contribute to the well-being of the whole, we find a deep and lasting sense of meaning.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. Being, doing, becoming, low-state stages of development, the structure of reality. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But it's all starting to connect in a really fascinating way. I'm eager to hear how this translates into practical action.
Yeah.
Especially for those of us who are drawn to the creator path.
Totally.
What does it mean to find meaning in the context of the creator economy?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
So we've explored these big, almost philosophical ideas about finding meaning, being present, understanding how we develop, and recognizing the interconnectedness of everything. Now, let's bring it back down to earth and talk about the creator path specifically.
Yes, let's get practical. Many listeners are excited about the creator economy.
Yeah.
But they're also feeling trapped in that old story.
Totally.
Get a degree, get a job, work till you die. It's hard to break free from that, even if it doesn't feel meaningful.
It's a powerful narrative that's been drilled into us for generations. The first step on the creator path is to consciously reject that story. To say, I'm not going to live my life on autopilot. I'm going to write my own story.
It's about reclaiming that sense of agency, the power to choose how we spend our time and energy.
Right.
But how do we even begin to write a new story when the old one is so ingrained?
It starts with clarity.
Okay.
Not just about what you want, but also what you don't want.
Oh, that's interesting. I usually focus on setting goals and visualizing what I want to achieve. Why is it so important to define the anti-vision as well?
Think of it like this. Your vision is the destination you're heading towards.
Okay.
But your anti-vision acts as a map that helps you avoid wrong turns and dead ends. It creates boundaries and filters out the distractions that pull you away from your true path.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But how do we actually define that anti-vision? Where do we even begin?
It might sound counterintuitive, but we can use some of the same introspective questions we talked about earlier. What frustrates you about the world? What are you trying to escape or avoid? What kind of work makes you feel drained or uninspired? By answering these honestly, you start to see the contours of what you don't want your life to look like.
So it's about being brutally honest with ourselves.
Yes.
Not just about our dreams, but also about our fears and aversions.
Precisely. And once you have a clearer sense of both your vision and your anti-vision, you can start to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that's where interest-based education comes in.
In the creator economy, it feels like learning is an ongoing process, not just something you do in school.
Absolutely. It's about becoming a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Constantly seeking knowledge and skills that align with your interests and goals.
Right.
Not just checking boxes on a resume. And the internet has made this kind of self-directed learning more accessible than ever.
It really has democratized knowledge. We're no longer limited by the constraints of the traditional education system.
Right.
But I know some people might be skeptical about learning online. They might say, there's so much information out there. How do you know what's accurate?
That's a valid concern. There is a lot of noise, misinformation, and frankly, just bad content out there. But the beauty of the creator economy is that creators have skin in the game.
Okay.
Their income is directly tied to the quality of their work and the satisfaction of their audience.
So unlike a teacher with a static salary,
right?
Creators are constantly striving to improve, innovate, and provide the best possible experience for their students or customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're incentivized to create genuine value because their livelihood depends on it. And when you find creators who are truly passionate about what they do and committed to delivering high-quality information, it can be a game changer. It's like having a mentor in your pocket.
You're speaking from experience here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My own journey of self-education has been so crucial to my growth, both personally and professionally. It's allowed me to adapt, learn new skills quickly, and pivot my career in ways that wouldn't have been possible with a more traditional path.
It's inspiring to hear you talk about it. It reminds us that we all have the power to take control of our own learning and create a path that truly aligns with our passions and goals.
That's what the creator path is all about. It's about reclaiming that sense of agency, rejecting the limitations of the old narrative, and realizing that we are not bound by outdated rules or expectations.
So we've talked about rejecting the old story, defining our vision and anti-vision, and embracing interest-based education. What's the next step on the creator path?
The next step is to focus on contribution. How can you use your unique skills and knowledge to make a positive impact on the world?
Okay.
It's about moving beyond self-interest and aligning your work with something larger than yourself.
Because ultimately, meaning comes from making a difference, right? From feeling like our work matters and contributes to something beyond our own immediate needs.
Exactly. And in the creator economy, the internet is an incredible platform for making that contribution.
Yeah.
You can reach a global audience, connect with like-minded people, and share your ideas and creations with the world.
I can already hear some people pushing back on that.
Yeah.
They might say, not everyone needs to be online. It's important to have a balance between the digital world and the real world.
Balance is crucial. And this isn't about being constantly plugged in or trying to build a massive following just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that the internet is a powerful tool for connection, for sharing, and for making a positive impact. It's about using the tools available to create something meaningful and connect with others who share your values and passions.
It's not about escaping the real world,
but
rather extending it, finding new ways to connect and contribute.
And that means shifting our focus away from building a personal brand for self-promotion and towards genuinely providing value.
What's the distinction between building a personal brand and genuinely providing value?
Building a personal brand can become very self-centered, focused on image and popularity. But providing value is about putting the needs of your audience first, about creating something that genuinely helps or inspires them.
It seems like when you focus on providing value, the personal brand naturally follows.
Exactly. When you're passionate about your work and committed to serving your audience, people will be drawn to you and your message organically. It's about authenticity, about being true to yourself and your purpose, rather than trying to fit into some preconceived mold of what a successful creator should be.
So it's not about creating a persona.
Right.
It's about letting your unique voice and perspective shine through and trusting that there's an audience out there who will resonate with it.
Yeah.
But all of this brings us to the business side of things, which can be intimidating for many creators.
It absolutely can be. One of the biggest misconceptions is that you need a grand business plan
Yeah.
or tons of startup capital to succeed. It's not true. The key is to demystify the process
Okay.
and see business as a natural extension of your creative work.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. How do we do that?
At its core, business is simply about exchanging value.
Okay.
You create something valuable, a product, a service, a piece of content, an experience, and people are willing to exchange their resources for it.
So it's about recognizing that your skills, knowledge, and creativity are valuable,
Yes.
and it's okay to ask for something in return.
Precisely. It can start very simply. You don't need a fancy website or a registered LLC to get started.
Okay.
You can begin by offering your services to people in your network.
So even if it feels small or imperfect,
Yeah.
the important thing is to take action and start somewhere.
Absolutely. The most important thing is to get started and learn as you go. You can always refine your offerings, build systems, and scale your business over time. But the first step is to take the leap and share your value with the world.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered so much ground, from that feeling of meaninglessness to the nuances of flow state and even the structure of reality itself.
It's been quite a journey, but it all connects in a way that I find really empowering.
I agree. It feels like we've given our listeners a lot to chew on. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to this idea of demystifying business.
Yeah.
Many creators struggle with that aspect, so can you give us some concrete starting points?
Absolutely. A lot of creators get caught up in feeling like they need to have everything figured out before they can charge for their work. You don't need a fancy website or a complex business plan to get started.
So what do you need? Where do you even begin?
Remember, business is fundamentally about exchanging value. You have valuable skills, knowledge, and creativity, and there are people out there who are willing to pay for access to those things.
So it's about recognizing that your time, energy, and expertise are worth something and shifting your mindset from hobbyist to professional.
Exactly. It's a mental shift as much as anything else. So, practically speaking, start by identifying a specific problem you can solve for a specific group of people.
Okay.
It could be anything from teaching a skill to creating a product that solves a pain point.
Okay, so you've identified the problem and your ideal audience. What's next?
Create a simple offer, a product, a service, or a piece of content that directly addresses that problem. Don't overthink it. The key is to start small and iterate as you go.
And how do you actually get people to pay for this offer?
Your network is your greatest asset, especially when you're starting out. Reach out to people you know and trust, people who might benefit from your offer. Tell them what you're doing and ask if they'd be interested in being your first customers. Feedback from those early adopters will be invaluable as you refine your offering and build your business.
It's about building momentum, gaining experience, and proving that there's a market for what you're creating.
Exactly. As you gain confidence and see those first successes, you can start expanding your reach, building systems and processes, and creating a more sustainable business. But those first steps are all about taking action, even if it feels imperfect, and learning as you go.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they embark on their own journeys of finding meaning in the creator age?
Remember, finding meaning is an ongoing process. It's not a destination you arrive at, but rather a journey of continuous growth, exploration, and evolution. Be present in your life. Be curious about the world around you. Be willing to experiment and embrace the unknown. And trust that your unique path will unfold in ways you might never have imagined.
Beautifully said. That's our deep dive on finding meaning in the creator age. There's a lot to unpack here, so take some time to reflect on what resonated with you. What will you do differently, starting today, to align your being, your doing, and your becoming? If you found this interesting, subscribe for more deep dives into the world of creators.